wall. 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 wall.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. It's going to be only America first. America first. The American people will come first once again. With respect, the respect that we deserve. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Good evening, everybody. We're watching America First. My name is NickJFuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back with you this evening, Tuesday. Lots to talk about tonight. Lots going on in the news. And that's really the subject of our show tonight. We're going to be looking at the media. In particular, we're looking at a BuzzFeed article written by our old pal, our old block-headed friend, Joe Bernstein, over at BuzzFeed. He covered last night, right after we finished the show, actually. I believe it was released during the show or a little bit after the show last night, a hit piece about a friend of mine, a friend who we streamed together, I think it was last weekend. You may know her as Lieutenant Corbus or Soph, which is a 14-year-old girl, right-wing, libertarian YouTuber, and a big hit piece was written about her. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the article, talk about the author, talk about Soph, and my take on everything. We'll be looking at what happened to Steven Anderson. Similarly, this happened a couple of days ago, but we didn't get a chance to cover it yesterday because of the big news about trade and about Orban and other things going on. But our friend, Pastor Steven Anderson, who he is a Protestant, but we consider him adjacent to the show. You know, he hovers around some of these similar areas. There's a little bit of overlap in what we talk about. He was banned from the country of Ireland. So we'll be talking about that and a couple of news articles, and it should be a pretty good show. But like I said, the theme is the media. These people are just out of control. Everywhere I look, every day, it's just as much what's happening in the world, which it's bad things happening all over the world. Trade, war, terrorism, whatever, white genocide. And that's bad enough. But then it feels like always right alongside it is the much more persistent problem, and maybe the systemic problem, perhaps a cause of the former, which is the media and the way they cover all this stuff. You know, if you watch the show, just about every story we do is, well, the tragedy or, you know, the story, whatever actually happened, and then there's equally as bad or maybe a little bit less, I guess in extreme cases, the media and their coverage. So that's what we're going to be looking at tonight, and it should be fun. We always have a good time bashing the media. But I'm excited. It's been a pretty good day. Mom's birthday today, so hey, happy birthday, Mom. I got her, actually, a little bit of a bummer. I went out today to get her a box of chocolate for her birthday, and I go into the store, and I remember distinctly on Valentine's Day, my father got her a box of chocolates, and she said, I hate that kind of chocolate. So that's the one that I don't like. So I remembered, I was like, okay, I remember she said she didn't like this one. I'm not going to get that one. And I went to the candy store to get the box of chocolates. I go, okay, I remember she didn't like that one. I'm pretty sure, I said, I'm pretty sure this was the one that she got for Valentine's Day that she didn't like. So I went on my way, got a card, I got a gift card, whatever. And so I came home today and I gave her the box of chocolates. It was the wrong one. It was the one that she said she hated. The only one that she got on Valentine's Day. And I could have sworn it was the other one, because there were two in my head that she had talked about. And there was one that she liked, and there was one that she absolutely under no circumstances wanted. And I was pretty sure I had it down. I was pretty sure I knew which one was right. It turned out I had the wrong one. So that was a bit of a bummer. So a little bit of a rough start, but hey, it's a thought that counts, right? It's a thought that counts. So the card was there, the gift card, the candy. Would have been better if we got the right one, but that's okay. So I had that happen to me today. But aside from that, there was one other thing I want to tell you about. Oh, yeah. So I went out, I was running my errands, and I'll say this real quickly, and then we'll jump right in, because we got a couple of news stories, and then we're looking at the Soph and the Steven Anderson. So it's a packed show. When I say it's packed, I say that every night, and sometimes it's a little bit light. But tonight it really is packed. It's right to the brim, right? So we got to get into that. But before we do, I just have to bring this up, because I always get this question in the super chats, or people ask me on Twitter. I'm a big fast food guy. I eat the Big Mac. I'm a McDonald's fan. And everybody's always giving me a hard time. They say, why don't you get Chick-fil-A? They say, why don't you get Chick-fil-A? It's so much better. It's higher quality. It tastes better. And it's a Christian company, closed on Sunday. They support the, allegedly anti-gay groups. They're not really anti-gay. It's just that they give to the Salvation Army and like one other charity. And those groups happen to not support gay marriage. So it's not really anti-gay, but that's the meme. That's the idea. It's the so they're the very traditional Christian and ostensibly conservative franchise. So I went, I'm running my errands. I figured it was right there. So I went to Chick-fil-A. I got the number one. I got the plain sandwich, not the deluxe, just the plain with the fries. And I'm eating it. I'm like, oh, this is not bad. Maybe I could get used to this. I haven't had this in a while. Pretty good sandwich, and it's warm. Usually I don't like to go there because by the time I get home, it's cold because it's kind of far away. So I had it right there in the parking lot. I didn't want to go in, and I didn't have time to do all that. So I went to the drive-thru, had it in the parking lot. It was warm. It was good. And then right before I go on the show, what do I find out? Maybe you've seen this already, but a friend of mine sent me a story from The Blaze, which says that their top charity officer, their top charity manager, the guy that's in charge of their charitable giving as an organization, puts out a public statement today, 4 hours ago, and says actually now they're going to consider giving to an LGBT organization. He said, well, the important thing is that it would have to be authentic. We don't want to go and make this a political stunt. We want to give to a gay charity that helps gay children, and because that's part of Christian inclusivity. And I just think you can't win. There's no winning. Just when you think, oh no, I found the Christian fast food brand. I found the movie, the television show, a product, an advertisement that isn't posh. I found the one. It's traditional. It's conservative. It's normal. Just when you think you found safety, it's gone. They found their way in. The pause, the virus, whatever you want to call it, finds its way in and corrupts it completely. There's just no winning. So, and not like I really care that much. I mean, whatever. They're corporations. You got a lot of... I knew a gay person in high school who worked at Chick-fil-A. He was in the closet, but he worked there, and I guess that was his way of justifying it, I guess that was his way of... because he was so flamboyant. And everyone's like, no, but he's not. But he works for Chick-fil-A. And I think that was his rationalization. But understand what I mean by that. I mean, you have liberals working there. You have conservatives working there. You have all kinds of people working and doing business. It's a major corporation, so you can't really, not like that affects the quality of the sandwich. It's still a good chicken sandwich. But it just, again, as we continue to demonstrate on the show, we are just trying to demonstrate that it permeates absolutely everything. Nobody, no company, no product, nothing will be given safe quarter. It has to be liberal. It has to be left-wing. It has to be supporting the agenda. You can't even be a non-participant anymore, right? You can't even say, I'm on the sidelines I'm a centrist. I go in the middle. It's like just an all-out totalitarian environment where you're either an enemy of the state. Like I said, Chick-fil-A, they give to the Salvation Army and one other Christian charity. And because those charities do not support gay marriage, that means Chick-fil-A is anti-gay and therefore homophobic and therefore hateful. And so you're always seeing these kinds of protests and, they write petitions and they try to get them kicked out of campuses and kicked out of cities. And, Bill de Blasio's up in arms about it. So it's like not only can you not oppose, you can't even be a non-participant anymore. You either go along with it and you support it and you're waving the flag and you're a part of it, or you're an enemy of the state. And it's a shame that that's the way it is, but that's the way it is, So for all those people out there that keep saying to themselves, we'll just go away, we'll just go into the woods, we'll go buy our own plot of land, and, we'll just do our own thing. They're not going to leave you alone. They don't leave anybody alone. As long as you use the U.S. dollar, that's what it comes down to. As long as you use the U.S. dollar and you're part of the global financial system and you have a bank account and you pay your taxes and you participate in that way, you're in. You're in. You got to be engaged. You got to be a part of it. I guess the only solution is to get off the grid. People don't like to talk about that, but, if you really wanted to be left alone, you have to go ghost. You have to be Danny Phantom. You have to say going ghost, and you don't have a social security number, and maybe you fake your own death, and you go to you have 2 passports. All your currency is Bitcoin or something else. That's the only way, because otherwise you're in. They own you. So, but they don't own me. But they don't own me. I'm fighting back. And you can fight back by super chatting. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But really, that's the way it is. So, anyway, now that we've gotten that out of my system, had to address that. We are going to talk about the news here. Before we get into Soph and Steven Anderson, I actually wanted to talk about 2 articles that I saw yesterday. And if you remember last night, we were crunched for time. There was just so much going on that I skipped one of these articles to save for today, just to give you an idea. So there's, I guess, 2 ideas that are the theme of the show. You cannot be a non-participant, and it's also then about the media. So I saw this article the other day from ABC News, and this isn't a huge story. But again, it's another data point. It's another thing which to me is so egregious and so obvious. And maybe if you go back 5 years and see a comparable article, it shows you how far we've come in such a short amount of time. But there was an article the other day reported on by ABC. It's a little bit of an older story, actually. And the article is about a young girl, a college-aged girl, she was 21 years old, who goes into a car that she thinks is her Uber, and it actually turns out it's not her Uber. And so the girl gets stabbed to death, kidnapped, buried in the guy's backyard, basically. Horrible, tragic story. I mean, it's just, the worst thing that anybody can imagine, right? A young girl, pretty young, 21 years old, and an honest mistake like that, and it cost her life, right? And that, I think, should be pretty straightforward. It's a horrible thing, but you write about that in the media. This happened in March. That's why I say it's a little bit older. That should be pretty straightforward. Do you want to know what the headline says? Writing about this tragic story. I'll read you the headline from ABC, and this is what stood out to me. I had to click to see what really happened, because this was the headline. It said, quote, University of South Carolina awards posthumous degree to Samantha Josephson, who died after getting into the wrong car. Well, is that what happened? I don't know if that's exactly what happened. She did get into the wrong car. Ultimately, she did die. But is that really a proper, appropriate way to phrase it? It would be sort of like somebody gets their head chopped off, or they get shot, or they get in, a fight, and somebody hits them so hard their head explodes. And what is it? Guy walks into somebody's hand and dies. Lead particle flies through man's head, dies. It seems like the language is a bit passive, don't you think? Wouldn't you say that's not quite exactly what happened? It gets better. The article says, Josephson, 21, died in March after she got into a car she mistakenly thought was an Uber after a night out with friends. So you imagine she's probably drinking, whatever. She's hanging out. It's dark. There's a lot of these factors. She gets into the wrong car. Okay. Now get this. It says, after she got into the stranger's car, the child's safety locks were activated, preventing her from escaping. The child safety locks were activated, and an autopsy found that she died from multiple sharp force injuries, authorities said. So the headline says she dies after getting into the wrong car. And how do they describe the story of a girl getting in, doors locking, stabbed to death? She got into the wrong car. The locks were activated, and then she died of sharp force injuries. Well, that's quite the way to say that she got into the wrong car, a predator then locked the doors and stabbed her to death. Maybe there's a question. Why do they articulate it in this way? Why do they talk about it in this way? There's another curious thing about this article. They name the suspect in the final paragraph, Nathaniel Rowland, but they don't say anything about this gentleman. That's pretty weird too. So now I'm seeing two anomalies here. I think maybe the second one explains the first one. They don't say anything about the suspect who has been convicted. The evidence is pretty obvious that he did it. They don't say anything about this guy other than his name. They don't show a picture of the gentleman. And, you know, me being a good journalist and me actually being a curious, good person, upstanding member of society, seeker of truth, I went into Google Images and I looked up the name and I wanted to see who is this gentleman. What do we find? We find that Nathaniel Rowlands, who kills a 21-year-old college girl, is a 26-year-old black man, previously convicted felon, and also was arrested for having drugs on him when they took him in for the murder of this young girl. And then I say, oh, so that's what's going on. Of course. And this is really what it comes down to. This is the way the media reports these things. Now, could you imagine if it was the reverse? Entertain the idea, for example, of a young black girl was murdered by a 25-year-old convict who was a white man. It was the same situation. I think there would be protests in the streets for months. I think a city would be on fire somewhere. I think there would be a hashtag. I think LeBron James would have a name on his shoe. I think Barack Obama would say that if I had a daughter, I guess he does have 2 daughters, but he would say, my daughters look like that girl. Because it feels like that's what happens whenever one of these people dies, right? When a black person gets killed by a police officer for committing a crime and for evading arrest or resisting arrest, this is what happens. Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, who's in the middle of robbing a convenience store and grabbing a cop's gun, and they burn down the city. Gentle Giant, hands up, don't shoot. Black Lives Matter. We still have not heard the end of this 7 years later. Now, here we have a totally comparable story, and this is the kind of language they couch it in. Not only does this stuff happen like every week, we've been doing this show for 2 years now. I can't tell you how many stories I see like this. Adult black man kills a young black girl who is white. Or, I'm sorry, not a young black girl. A black man kills a young white girl, kills a white child, something like that. We've seen that happen a lot on this show. Usually I don't talk about it because, you know, that's not really part of the grander thing that's going on. Typically, we're talking about more national news. But here is a particularly egregious example where we see exactly what's happening. It is the total suppression of this kind of information. The media does not want you to know that a 25-year-old black man killed a young white girl. Why don't they want you to know that? Why aren't they reporting it? Why do they write the language so passively? Why don't they include a picture? I watch the news all the time. They show the pictures. Why no picture? Why no details? You know why. You know why. We know why. We've been covering this stuff forever. But here's a, no pun intended, black and white example of, here it is right there. This is exactly what we're talking about every night on the show. People like to pretend that this stuff isn't happening, you know, that black on white crime isn't a reality and it isn't totally disproportionate than the other way around. And then they also like to pretend that the media isn't covering it up when they are and the crime is happening. So I find that incredible. I find that amazing that that's allowed to happen. ABC. As she gets into the car mistakenly, the child safety locks are activated, and then the autopsy finds she died from stab wounds. That's a funny way to say that a black man went into a neighborhood and killed the young white girl, stabbed her to death, kidnapped her, buried her in his backyard. That's a pretty interesting way to say that, right? Pretty fascinating. So I find that pretty fascinating, and like I said, we were going to cover that yesterday. We didn't really have any time, but, you know, just another example of the stellar media. You know, Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness. The New York Times, truth matters. Truth is hard to find. Constantly going after the president for the anti-media rhetoric, saying the media is the enemy of the people. Really? I think the media is the enemy of the people after reading something like that. Just despicable. And then I saw this, I don't think we have time for this one, actually. I just wanted to save this one for tomorrow. It's not really following along the same theme. So we'll jump right into our story, actually, about Soph and about Steven Anderson. I guess we'll start with Steven Anderson because this was more recent. But it's all along the same lines. I think the point we have to drive home is it's the media. The media, the media, the media. That's the answer. And this is what I realized to kind of go into this subject in general. When I was a libertarian in high school, people asked me all the time, how did you get red-pilled? How did you become woke? How did you understand what was really happening in the country? All the relevant facts. Because, and I've said this before, when I was in high school, I was your pretty conventional constitutionalist, Fox News type conservative. I bought Bret Stephens' book, okay, America in Retreat, and I watched Ben Shapiro's Truth Revolt originals and all that, and I dutifully shared and subscribed to Prager Force and all that. How do you get from point A to point B? And I have to tell you, the biggest reason, and this is what I'm realizing as I get older, is what it was that turned me initially, and now what I'm really coming to understand now more than ever, is that it's about the media. In 2016, I didn't go from supporting like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul to supporting Donald Trump because I agreed with his policies, or I found out about other things, other relevant facts going on, or even so much about immigration or electoral politics. The reason I came over is because I realized, I said, you look around at the extent to which the media and the culture is controlled by the left. And I said, even though I support Ted Cruz's policies more, if he was elected, and that's my first choice, he couldn't get anything done. Because whether he's in office or not, the left still controls the media, and the people still believe the media. And so long as that's the case, a Republican president could never get anything done, and probably a Republican president would have a harder time getting elected as time goes on because of the media. So that was really what bridged the gap for me initially was Donald Trump understands this. Donald Trump is attacking the media. He's attacking their credibility, and that's actually more important than Ted Cruz having policies that I agree with. So that was actually kind of a little bit of a walk through memory lane when I see this kind of stuff and I realize, that was really what bridged me over. And as I get older now, it's really been driven home to me that without controlling the media, without controlling mass communication, you really can't get anything done in the country. And I actually had a friend, QAnon actually, sent over an article to me this afternoon talking about how, and it was a study that was done, showing cultural attitudes and how they're almost directly affected by democracy. It compared economic development and democracy and how they affect cultural change. In other words, what is causing the world to become paused? That's not how the study phrased it, but what is causing liberal attitudes? What is causing this cultural shift that's happening in the Western world? Is it material wealth? Is it that we're a late-stage capitalism, industrial country? Or is it that we're liberal? Is it that we're, in other words, our political system is democratic? And it found that the correlation was actually much higher with democracy, that you can be a wealthy society with material abundance and not have the shift in cultural attitudes, but democracy is really what brings it home. And you start to understand how it's all related there. Because democracy, what controls a democracy? The media. Democracy is about the people going out en masse being convinced to vote for candidates. So there's the incentive there to brainwash the people. Only in this system does the media play a big role. Only in this system is a privately held media with foreign interests a liability, and as big of a liability as it is. So that's really the theme. That's what we're talking about. That's kind of the red pill in our area for this week. But moving onward to the current events here. Why are we talking about this? Why are we bringing it up? We look at Steven Anderson. Steven Anderson, who was kicked out of Ireland. And this is a story from BBC. It says, quote, Arizona pastor Steven Anderson said he was supposed to preach in Dublin on May 26th. However, an online petition called for Anderson to be banned from the country. It received 14,000 signatures. And according to BBC News, Irish Minister for Justice Charlie Flanagan signed an exclusion order for Anderson, which went into effect on May 10th in response to the petition. In a statement, Flanagan said he had signed the order, quote, under my executive powers in the interest of public policy. So a pretty bland, generic statement. But that's the first time that the country has ever excluded anybody, banned somebody from their country since 1999 when the law was passed. So Ireland has never banned anybody in modern times since the law was passed allowing the prime minister to execute such a power. for Steven Anderson. And Anderson has been banned from multiple other countries, including South Africa, Jamaica, Botswana, and the United Kingdom. So, pretty rough guy. But so you have one person who's been unpersoned. This is a Christian pastor who is against homosexuality, against Judaism, against Islam, which, to be fair, if you're a Christian, you kind of have to be against all those things. And that's a little bit of a brief detour. But hey, in his defense, a lot of people like to say, well, we should only reserve these kinds of things for the worst people. We should only reserve countrywide bans and censorship for the people that are actually like this. But, I take a step back and I think Steven Anderson has some pretty coarse rhetoric about LGBT, about Jewish people, about Muslims. But I think I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. Aren't we kind of called to be the same way? Isn't he just kind of more courageous than every other Christian and perhaps more true to the doctrine? I know a lot of people like to pretend and they don't like that because it's not politically correct and, it's not exactly couth to bring up those kinds of opinions. But hey, if you're a Christian, who crucified our guy? Hey, if you're a Christian, Muslims want you dead. If you're a Christian, Jews say some pretty choice things about you in the Talmud. So that's a little bit of a brief detour. If you say you believe in Jesus Christ, but you're all about our Jewish friends or our Muslim friends or the LGBT stuff, can you really say that you're faithfully executing the faith? Can you really say that you're all about what Christ said in the Bible or what God said in the Bible or inspired in the Bible? I don't think so, right? So anyway, that's a little bit of a detour. That's really not the topic, but it just goes to show another person deplatformed, and this ties in a much greater way, and this is the feature and the focus of the show, with Soph, and she's the reason we're talking about this. Like I said, I was on a stream with her 2 weeks ago. She invited me on, and we were playing Minecraft, or she was playing Minecraft. Me and her friend were debating about libertarianism. We did sort of an interview together, and we talked for a little while, and I found, she's a smart kid. She's a YouTuber. For people that don't know her, she's been a YouTuber since she was 9 years old, actually, which is a little bit young, in fairness, but she's been a YouTuber since she was 9. She's amassed over 800,000 subscribers on YouTube, over 100,000 followers now on Twitter, and lately she's been doing a lot of political videos, doing a lot of right-wing, libertarian-themed videos. I haven't really been able to pin down exactly what her ideology is. She claims to be, like I said, an anarcho-capitalist type, but sympathetic to traditionalist Christianity and things like this, but ostensibly right-wing, anti-PC. Maybe she's the next generation of anti-SJW stuff, which is a cringe way to frame it, but I kind of see that as the evolution of maybe this trend that started with Gamergate. And so she's out there doing her thing, and we see yesterday, after the show, there was an article published about her in BuzzFeed by Joe Bernstein. Joe Bernstein is a white journalist who has all the white privilege in the world, as Sam Hyde says. And you may remember him. He is the one who got $1 Million Extreme's show World Peace canceled from Adult Swim. If you follow this, you probably know who Sam Hyde is. He's a comedian. He did a comedy show on Adult Swim, which was prematurely canceled after one season because of an article written by this fellow from BuzzFeed. So he comes back. That's why the show is the return of Blockhead Joe Bernstein. Beautiful Joe. And I'll read you a little excerpt from the article because it's just fascinating to me. It's just incredible to me, the irony. He writes about Soph, our friend. He says, quote, "This video, a video that she did recently, reveals an entirely different way the platform is harming kids by letting them express extreme views in front of the entire world. This is what indoctrination looks like when it's reflected back by the indoctrinated. Soph's popularity raises another, perhaps more difficult question about whether YouTube has an obligation to protect such users from themselves and one another." So in response to this article, YouTube has issued 2 community guideline strikes against Soph's channel. So I guess that means she won't be able to post videos for 90 days, I believe is how that works. I think 1 strike is 1 week, 2 strikes is 90 days, a 3rd strike, you're permanently suspended. So she's been facing some trouble because of this, Joe Bernstein going after a young girl. And we're going to get into that. I think it's probably a more important angle to talk about how the media is going after children. But to me, what is interesting, and the irony that I look at when I read a statement like this about children expressing extreme political views on YouTube, the indoctrinated reflecting back to what does it say? Indoctrination looks like when it's reflected back by the indoctrinated. I look at something like that and I read this article and I think, don't you have any sense of self-awareness? What has the media been promoting for the last year with the child drag queens? Seriously? What have we been hearing about? That's the latest trend, I think, since the last Pride Parade or 2 Pride Parades ago. A kid called Desmond is Amazing, who is 11 years old, where his disgusting libtard mom dresses him up in a full face of makeup and the most scandalous clothes and pimps him out at gay bars so gay men can give him money while he dances and does stripper dances for them. And I think on the one hand, you've got Vice, you've got BuzzFeed, Salon Slate, and they're saying, this stuff is great, this stuff is acceptable. On the one hand, they're promoting children getting sex change surgery. They're promoting that a child knows that they're transgender, that they're experiencing gender dysphoria, and then they can claim to get a sex change. In Canada, you see that the laws have changed where if a child identifies as transgender and the parents don't go along with it, the children are taken into custody by the state because of this new law they passed. So on the one hand, you've got, and these are 2 examples, the most egregious and the most extreme examples, but they're happening every day, enough that I'm well aware of them, that we report on them almost every month or every couple of weeks. So on the one hand, you've got the media promoting this kind of degeneracy. An 11-year-old getting a sex change surgery, that's fine. That's their right. It's 2019. 11-year-old boy becoming a drag queen and dancing for money. Oh, you're making a big deal out of it. It's all in good fun. It's controversial. It's pushing the boundaries. RuPaul says it's the future of America. Nobody's got any problems with that. And actually, if you have a problem with that, they have a problem with you. They say that, oh, well, the only reason you're concerned about that is because, you're a hater, you're a white supremacist, you're this and that. So on the one hand, you've got this. On the other hand, you've got a teenager, 14-year-old. Now, that's a little young, I'll say. And I don't know if I'm totally on board with the idea of people that young getting on YouTube. Personally, I would advise against it. But nevertheless, you've got a teenager, 14-year-old girl. She goes on and she makes a video talking about politics, whatever. And she's getting a hit piece written about her. She's a teenager. And she's got a Jewish journalist. I'm sorry, a white journalist. It doesn't matter that he's Jewish. It doesn't matter that all these people every time are Jewish. Everybody in the Illuminati is Jewish. That doesn't matter. They've got a white 30-something-year-old creep journalist from BuzzFeed writing hit pieces. It doesn't stop there. This was only the latest example. She says that Talia Levin, another white journalist, texting and calling this girl's parents. Texting and calling her, emailing her. She says, I don't want to be a part of an interview. And this journalist, Talia Levin, this fat, disgusting pig journalist, calling and texting, harassing her parents. This is the state of the media. This is the state of our country. Understand this is how it goes. You don't go along with the system, whether you're Steven Anderson, whether you're this girl, whatever. If it's a story, if you get murdered by the wrong person, and this is the kind of treatment that you get from the media with a girl like this. And I understand, and I'll say, because I think it's important to say, she is very young. And is it a totally responsible thing to have a young girl like that saying extreme things? And I know, I went on her show and we talked and everything, but to go out there because the situation is the way it is, you could argue that that's not exactly an ideal situation to be in. I don't think that that's an enviable situation for somebody to be in, that already, you're 14 years old and you've got the media, because the media exists like this. But that doesn't mean, that aside, concerns or debate about that aside, why is it like that? Why should people be sort of scared and whatever? And there's this constant state of fear and paralysis about this kind of a situation. It's because the media will harass anybody and everybody who goes against it, even if you're 14 years old, even if you're a child, a teenager, but nevertheless, you see this person, a child, and you see a white Jewish journalist writing full-on hit pieces. They're getting channel strikes. This girl's being harassed. You've got all these blue-check journalists now surrounding her and going all over her because of this. It's just downright despicable. And I think that's really where the focus ought to be now, moving forward, is on the media. Because we can look at everything else, right? We can look at the policy type stuff, which is boring and all that. But really, I feel, at the end of the day, if you're not fixing and you're not focusing on the role that the media is playing, if you're not focusing on all these little stories where it's outright lies, or they're manipulating the language, or they're going after and harassing people and targeting people like this, Because this is just one example of it, but there's another example in my friend Sean McCaffrey. There's a perfect one, where it's not just they'll go after anybody, but they'll go after you forever. That's the concern with a girl like this. 10 years ago, you would say, well, maybe you shouldn't put a video out like that because it's not a good look. It's not a great look. And, maybe an employer will find that and they won't like it or something. Now the concern is you do something like that and you have to live with it forever because a journalist will be assigned to you and they will follow you for decades. And they will go to your employer if your employer doesn't find it. They will go to a political campaign. They will go to your family. They will go to your friends. They'll go to your significant others. They'll go to everybody you know and tell them about it. That's why this is such a concern now. So for people that say, oh, well, she shouldn't be on there in the first place. Yeah, but why? Why do you think that is? People don't understand how the ecosystem works, that you literally get somebody assigned. You have Right Wing Watch, you have Media Matters, and then you have the general mainstream media. And the way it works, you think Jared Holt is a small-time sort of a guy. Yeah, he is. He probably makes a pittance doing what he does for a living. He's 20-some years old, a college grad, and he's probably, I would imagine, broke. I would imagine he's probably poor, living in Washington, D.C., the way the rent is there, and getting paid by Right Wing Watch. I mean, he's a total loser. But don't discount and underestimate the importance of people like this. His beat, the whole career that he has, and it's paid for by people like George Soros directly. It's funded by a nonprofit, basically, right? The whole reason that he's out there is so that he can look out and he can watch the people with 1,000 YouTube subscribers, the people with 100 followers on Twitter. He can know Sean McCaffrey and Beardson and people like myself and Soph and others by name, people that exist in this little niche. And so he's assigned and he gets paid. He's assigned to these people. And when he reports on it, then it trickles up a little bit to Media Matters. Media Matters, another nonprofit, another George Soros left-wing rag. They're small time. Your average person doesn't know anything about them or maybe hasn't heard about them. But it'll go from an organization from like Right Wing Watch or another small time one. It'll trickle up to Media Matters. Media Matters reports on it. And that's where all the left-wing organizations get their sources. Huffington Post, Salon, Slate, whoever it is. So it goes to Media Matters and then it blows up. And then all the other organizations pick it up. And then a bigger one will write up on it, like the Huffington Post, a more household name. Huffington Post writes up on it, then it makes its way up, ultimately, if it's a big enough story, to NBC, or it makes it to Fox News. I've seen Fox News use Media Matters before, and Huffington Post and things like that. It makes its way to the big ones, right? And even if it doesn't make it all the way there, because 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. You don't hear about one of our stories going all the way up the food chain. Sometimes it does. Sometimes, like in the case of PewDiePie, they're writing about it in the Wall Street Journal or in a few isolated cases. But typically, and this is what is, I think, a little bit worse, this is where it's a little bit more subversive and a little bit more quiet and whatever, is it doesn't even have to get up to the big mainstream sources to have an effect, because you'll find that congressional secretaries and you'll find that a lot of people that are making studies and a lot of people that are writing the basis for laws and academia and things like this, they're reading the left-wing sources. So when you see, and you'll see this a lot, a study about white nationalism on the rise, or hate crimes on the rise, or anti-Semitism on the rise, or some statistics about how YouTube has to change their policies, it's coming from these people. And as a result of these studies and these reports, which are always based on lies, and it's always totally irresponsible, and it's always funded by a left-wing political advocacy, as a result of these reports, you see big policy changes at Google, and you see big policy changes at the level of state and national government. And that's the way that they're purging us. So people will say, oh, you really think they're coming to get you? I had a famous quote from a couple of years ago. I said something, I was caught off the record on a hidden camera saying that, certain people are out to get me. People say, oh, you really think, they're coming for you? It's a totalitarian state? Yes, because this is the way the cadre has been assembled of journalists to look out for any little bit of dissent. When you see Jared Holt, he doesn't go after, people like Soph. He goes after people with, 100 live viewers doing a stream about QAnon. And he knows them all by name. And he knows, if there's 5 people who claim to be in the KKK leading a march in the Arkansas state capitol, he's on it. He's reporting on it. And every one of these little stories finds its way in there into the big report. I'm sure you can bank on it that some functionary at Facebook or YouTube or in a congressional office is reading it, and they're drafting policy, and it's changing our lives. And it's making it harder for us to spread the truth about what's happening. And so I think, we can look at all these media incidents, and what new thing can we say about it? The media doesn't report on black and white crime. Hello, welcome to the 21st century. This has been going on for 30 years. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows why Chicago is dangerous. Sorry, everybody knows why Chicago is dangerous. Everybody knows why Detroit is shit. Everybody knows why Washington, D.C., certain neighborhoods are no good. We all know that. Is that a real complicated problem? Is that rocket science? Gee, why are people afraid to go to Chicago? They're not afraid to go to Lincoln Park. They're not afraid to go to Lakeview. Not afraid to go to Bridgeport. They're not afraid to go into the western suburbs. They're afraid to go to Englewood. And they're afraid to go to areas around Hyde Park. And they're afraid to go to Garfield. They're not Garfield. They're afraid to go to Beverly and Garfield Park. They're afraid to go to those areas, and we know why, right? So there's nothing new to be said there, nothing you don't already know. Maybe you just need to permit yourself to acknowledge that. And the media going after children, the media getting people banned from countries, people being persecuted. What more is there to say? We know that. We know that. We see it every day. If you don't, it's like who's the rapper? And it's like T-Pain said, if you're not getting it by now, you're just not going to get it, right? But the point that must be made, that I don't see people making enough, is about this cadre. That's the problem that must be dealt with. Because otherwise, I think we're all on the chopping board here. Google has so much going on. How could they know about somebody like me? YouTube, Facebook. How could they know about somebody like Soph? Is she a problem? Is she somebody that's really a threat to society, a menace to society? No. They say she threatened to kill the YouTube CEO. It was a joke, So they don't know about this stuff. They don't really need to know, and they shouldn't know. If not but for the media, which is evil, which is harassing us, which is funded by our enemies, and which is built from the top down to operate like this. It's just like the Communist Party in China. How do you think they crushed dissent over there? It's called the Communist Cadre. And not to make it like a Glenn Beck, it's communism, but they've created the cadre. And so maybe we need to start to take a look at that. What are ways that we can push back and combat these organizations? I don't know. But I look at a guy like Joe Bernstein, and, these people, they think they're untouchable. They think that they're untouchable. We feel like they're untouchable. It's the media, and you can't fight the media. But the thing is, the media is made up of people. And people are understandable. People are limited in their capacity to do damage. You may be afraid of the media, but Joe Bernstein is just some 30-year-old guy living in Manhattan, living in some place with some address, and he's just a normal guy like anybody else. And so I think once you realize that, well, then it becomes a whole lot easier to think about solving these things, that it's not some big, intimidating conglomerate thing, it's not some ominous force. It's only as good as the people that are running it. And so I think, I don't know. Do we talk to them? Do we have a talking to with them? Do we sit down with Joe Bernstein and say, hey, man, you really got to stop this stuff. What you're doing is you're harming the country. You're killing the country. Is it a lawsuit? Is it class action? Is it Donald Trump making laws? I don't know. Frankly. I don't know what the answer is. But I think that unless and until we can start to roll back their monopoly on media, and understand that's what the social media stuff is about. That was our attempt to sort of get around it. Oh, well, they control the media. Well, we can have 10 million subscribers on YouTube and we can become the media. And then they shut that down really quickly. But if we're ever going to win the country, we got to win the media. To win the media, we got to roll back their control. We have to start imposing some hard limits on, what they're doing, that they can't just do these kinds of things with impunity, So I don't know what that's going to take, but it's certainly been a challenge. I think that's our number one priority at this point. So anyway, that's the media. By the way, I don't want anyone to interpret that in any ambiguous way. When I say that, I mean legal, rhetorical, any way to combat the media. Obviously, no violence. That goes without saying. We're not encouraging anything like that. But I think unless and until the media problem is taken care of, it's going to be not a good time for the next couple of years or decades or whatever. But that's Soph we're rooting for. If you want to check out her content, she's on BitChute now. She won't be able to post on YouTube, and her videos are getting taken down. So she's on BitChute. You can find her on Twitter at Sewer Nuggets. You got to support these people while they're still around. People like her, people like me. because we're not going to be here for long, right? But anyway, that's Soph, that's Steven Anderson. We're going to take a look at our super chats now because we're running out of time. So we'll see what you guys are saying about all this. Maybe you guys have some suggestions as to what can be done. I don't know. I don't know. They call me a white nationalist still. How do you fight that? They're just lying, you know? I've said it explicitly. The one time I said it explicitly and they used that quote to claim I was a white nationalist. They said, well, I'm not a white nationalist, but I guess you could say I'm a nationalist and I happen to be white. So Jared Holt says, he says he's not a white nationalist by saying he's a white nationalist. Well, it's not the same thing, dummy. You know, and I've said it a million times. I said it at my Iowa State speech. The girl who wrote up the article announcing my arrival said, white nationalist, Nick Fuentes. And I pulled up the article and I said, they said this, and this is BS. This is a lie. She watched the same journalist who wrote the initial article, watched that stream, reported on it the next day. White nationalist, Nick Fuentes. They're just openly lying, and what do you do about that? And I've talked to lawyers. They say, yeah, you just don't have a case. It's impossible to prove defamation when it's a public figure and you say things that are, you know, even remotely close to that. And given the reputation and the people you associate with and all that, there's no way to fight back. And these people have so much power because, like I said, it's this cadre effect that by virtue of them lying about you and saying something that is not true and so blanketly not true, they take out your living, you know, the way that you make your living. They take out your money. They take out your social media. They take out everything. They harass you. That's the basis that your life is canceled forever. So what we have to do is prove that some people can make it. I think we talked about that a little bit with Darren Beatty on a premium show recently, but, you know, maybe that's a solution. But anyway, we got to get into the super chats here. Robert Foy says, Nick, I'll be in Washington, D.C. for the first time ever next week. Any unironic tips to maximize my experience in the capital of the global homo empire? Tips to maximize your experience? I've been to Washington, D.C. a lot at this point. I go just about twice a year for the past couple of years, and I've been there several times before that. So, tips to maximize. I don't really like Washington, D.C. I got to be honest with you. I have a lot of friends there, and it's always great to see my friends there. But as far as cities go, the food is not really great. There's not a lot of great sightseeing. You know, once you see and you do the tourist stuff, you kind of done it already. You know, I went when I was in middle school and saw all that stuff, and it's like, okay, great. So it's not my favorite. And also, I met a pretty interesting character. I'm sure you all know him, but he doesn't want me to say that I met him. But he had some pretty interesting observations about the architecture and the sculptures and the things that were happening there, which woke me up to the fact that Washington, D.C. is an evil city. You know, and I tweeted this the last time I left Washington, D.C. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Washington, D.C. has a giant obelisk in the middle of it. Doesn't that rub anybody the wrong way? Nobody asks why that is. Gee, why is there a big obelisk in the middle of the nation's capital? It's the Washington Monument. Yeah, but why? Why isn't it a statue of Washington? Why isn't it? It's a big obelisk. Kind of raises some eyebrows, you know, and people say, oh, well, the Vatican has an obelisk. A little bit different. Read up on that. So, you know, the obelisk is associated with ancient Canaanite gods, ancient Egyptian gods. Really makes you think. And all the framers of the Constitution were Masons. I don't know. And the city's shaped like a pentagram, you know, the National Mall. So, but how do you maximize your experience? I don't like the city, but let me think. I don't really have any restaurant recommendations. Georgetown Cupcake is pretty good. That's in Georgetown. That's not in D.C., but I've been there. Cupcakes are kind of gay, but I went there when I was like 13 or something, and it was really good, honestly. So that's cool. Georgetown is a cool area if you go around there. Alexandria is cool. None of this is in D.C. All of this is in the periphery, but these are cool areas. Let me think. You want to do the National Mall stuff if you haven't been there before. You know, the Lincoln Monument, the Washington Monument, Congress, the White House, all that. But that should take care of it. I mean, there's so much tourist type stuff in D.C. you won't be able to do it all. So that should be a good recommendation. But it's not great. Get out of there as soon as possible. Alien says, hey, Nick, love the show. Got into it recently after seeing you destroy Destiny. Give the Coreville AA boys a quick shout out too. I don't know what that is, but hey, shout out to them. And hey, good to hear a recent convert to the Knicker Nation. Good to see. Smelly says, Walter from Drake and Josh said, hi, say hi back. Okay, hi. Smelly says, Walter from Drake and Josh said the N-word, disavow. Seth Rich says, my wife's boyfriend recommended your show. Oh, good to see that we're popular with those characters then. And Cynical says, please marry Brittany Venti and adopt Soph. Can't do it. Can't do it. I can't marry a pagan. I can't marry somebody who has a shrine to Artemis in her house. So, and I like Brittany Venti. You know, Brittany Venti, she's a sweet girl, and I like her. She's pretty. She's a pretty girl. But she's a pagan, and can't have that. So maybe she drops the Artemis stuff, then we'll talk. You know, it's still a conversation, but then we'll talk, you know. And adopt Soph, yeah. I don't know, Soph is 14. It's kind of weird. But I consider Soph a good friend, you know. And I wish her the best of luck. I hope everything works out. Maybe I can help her, you know. I don't know. I'll think about my connections, my resources, how I can give her a boost. Because I was in that situation. I wasn't as young as she was, but, you know, I was 18 after Charlottesville, right? Or I was actually 19. So, well, I was a little bit younger. But I've been in that situation as a younger man, and I get it. I've been there, so... She's got people helping her, though. I'm a little bit bitter about that. You know, when I was in that situation after Charlottesville, nobody wanted to help me out. You know, Mike Cernovich wasn't tweeting about me, and Dave Rubin wasn't tweeting about me, and all these other people. Mark Dice didn't come to my defense. I was just left out to dry by everybody. So, not that I, you know, but who's keeping score, right? So, but that's good. But that's a good thing. We want that to happen. We want her to get defended and all that, but... You know, just saying, when I was in the same boat, it's like, well, now you come to her defense. And she said worse things than I ever did. That's okay. That's okay. Life on easy mode. No, I'm joking. No, but I'm joking. But she's not like the other ones. She's not like the other femboids. We actually like her. So, Smelly says, how to tell GF I watched Drake and Josh. I don't know what this meme is. But whatever. Morningstar says, you recently stated that you read the Bible for the first time not too long ago. Which version did you read? KJV, NIV, ESV? Any recommendations? I read the, I think it was the NIV. It was like the New Living Translation. Does that sound right? Yeah, it was that one. So I read the NLT, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was my first one. But I'm not 100% sure. Seth Rich says, if Bible is so great, how come it's got no sequel? Well, it's got the catechism, so it actually does if you're Catholic. Tyrone says, hey, Nick, what do you think about capping the highest income tiers with high tax rates as a way to restrict the powers of unelected individuals? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just question the efficacy of such policies. I feel like there's other ways to capture income, or rather there's other way to capture wealth. Like a VAT tax, for example, I think is more effective. A consumption side tax or a luxury tax, you know, conspicuous consumption tax. Because the problem that you have is even when you have a top marginal tax rate, we used to have that. You know, everybody always says, oh, but under Eisenhower, we had a 90% top marginal tax rate. And nobody paid it. And that's the, you know, and that's a talking point from the other side is, well, nobody paid it. And it's true. Because what happens is once you change the tax code in such a way, well, people who are that rich can afford lawyers and accountants to tell them how to not pay that much. You know, so they put it in a foreign bank account or they change the way the income is counted or whatever. Trump paid zero in income taxes for 10 years. Amazon paid zero. Is that because they didn't make income? No, it's because they know how to camouflage it. They know how to manipulate the system. So I don't think it's about that. I think as long as you live in a democracy, that's inevitably going to happen. You know, well, we can limit how much income a person makes by taxing it, but that doesn't get rid of the fact that you're going to have super wealthy people. That's a feature, not a bug. So the problem is change the system. Not, oh, we can modify it a little bit if we just increase the taxes, whatever. I don't think that'll fix anything. You know, Jeff Bezos still has $150 billion. And it's not even about income for a lot of these people. It's about, you know, their assets appreciating. They run a business. So it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. So I think it requires a more comprehensive solution. You get rid of mass democracy, I think it solves itself, frankly. Get a more aristocratic sort of element, or I don't know what that would look like. You know, I'm not a political scientist, but change the system. Tyrone says, hey, Nick, what do you think about, or I read that one actually. Tyrone says, also, Chainlink may, what does it say? Chainlink may hit 30? What? May 30? Strap the F in, lads. So you're telling people to buy Chainlink currency. I don't know about all the altcoins. It's going to launch on Ethereum, so you should... let me check the prices. Because I saw Bitcoin went up to 8,000 recently, and that was pretty substantial. But I haven't been looking at the altcoins. Well, I don't know anything about Chainlink, but yeah, maybe take a look at that. I know Sean bought into that in a big way. But I don't really trust the altcoins. I feel like if you buy cryptocurrency, you buy Bitcoin. You know, you buy one of the big ones. But I remember last year, it was like, you have to buy IOTA. And you have to buy, what was the other one? That was a big 4th-gen currency. Or you have to buy Mothership. Or you have to buy, this esoteric coin that nobody had heard of. Right? And I feel like all that, one of the theories for why Bitcoin's been rising is that people are transferring their money from altcoins into Bitcoin. So I don't know, I'm not an expert. Norwood says, buy DGTX after BTC goes back down below 6K. What's DGTX? I sold my Bitcoin when it hit 8,000 to anticipate a retracing, a consolidation. But I'll buy back in once it drops again. Let's see. Rugal says, respond to Sofneg yet? She says, Castizo, gross, bro. Ouch. Well, I'm not going to hit her back because she's 14 years old, but, I think she likes me. And anyway, what? Her friend is from Brazil, so I don't take it seriously. I have thick enough skin that I can say, I'm not going to punch back at a girl. I'm not going to punch back at a teenage girl. Can't do it. Temple Drake says, can we have, and coming from a femoid too, that kind of says it all, right? Joking. Temple Drake says, can we have America First, but 7 times a week with 2 additional hours every night in an afternoon show? It's always so sad when Nick Fuentes, America's sweetheart, says goodbye to the people. Always more, right? It's never good enough. I can barely do Monday through Friday. I told Jesse Lee Peterson, he does that. He does 6 hours of radio, and he does a TV show and everything else. I'm like, I can barely do an hour a night. 2 hours a night these days. So we do 6 days a night if you're a premium member, but yeah, I don't know. It's a little much. Really Good Comic says, let's find where Blockhead Joe lives and egg and toilet paper is placed. It also smashes mailbox. It's government property, so it's fine. Disavow. No vandalism. No violence. Remember, no violence against people or property. This is a non-violent show. We preach rhetoric, okay? That's the only way. Self-defense, maybe. If, Joe Bernstein comes at you and tries to harm you, defend your life. But other than that, no violence. Michael says, do you believe you've ever BTFO'd someone worse in a debate than when you literally made the professional debate loser, Adam Kokesh, forfeit on the Chadcast? Nick the Knife Fuentes, King of Blood Sports. I don't know if that was, maybe my debate with Coach Red Pill. That was probably a more resounding BTFO. There's so many people that just get destroyed. I feel like it's either kind of a draw or it's just a bloodbath. Coach Red Pill is probably the biggest BTFO ever. But Adam Kokesh is close. A close second. Yeah, he cried uncle at the end. He says, you know what, let's just wrap it up at the end. Poor Adam. He was nice enough, I guess, and it's he's chipper and funny and all that. But yeah, the guy's just dumb, man. The guy's just straight dumb. So he didn't stand a chance. But yeah, Coach Red Pill is probably worse. Gen Z says at 450 of the Ruben Molyneux interview on Race and IQ, Steph says, quote, I don't remember all these numbers. I don't have them tattooed on my wrist. LOL. That's pretty funny. We love Stefan Molyneux. I love that guy. I think he's hilarious, and I think he's probably one of the smartest people. And honestly, he's red-pilled half the people that are now content creators. He's been at it long enough that when I went to He Will Not Divide Us, somebody asked Sam Hyde, because that's why I went there. He was there. Somebody said, Sam Hyde, how did you get red-pilled? And he said, watching Stefan Molyneux videos. And that's how I got red-pilled, too. That's how my friends got red-pilled. So he's the godfather. He's the godfather. You got to give credit to Molly Meme, the man himself. No, he's good. I love that guy. And that only makes me respect him more. And he's able to do it. He is living proof that all that stuff matters. Optics, persuasiveness, because he got on Dave Rubin and talked about race and IQ. It works. So we love that guy. Jose says, great seeing Tulsi Gabbard comments against tech censorship and foreign interventions while Trump protects Israel from the sidelines. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like to stand a woman for president, but she's pretty on the money. She attacked Netanyahu, Bolton, the Saudis, the tech censorship. I like her. We got to meme her now. We memed Yang. I don't know. Tulsi's a tough sell because she's a femoid, but I like what she's saying. Norwood says, Nick, your Filtrum is looking wacky. Filtrum. Vertical indentation in the middle area. You can't even see that. My camera's not even high def enough. I don't think it's looking wacky. How's it looking wacky? Looks normal to me. But I don't know. It's always something. It's you're chubby, you're balding, your Filtrum is looking weird. It's constant nags. People say I have a thin skin. How could I have a thin skin and do this show every night with the kind of super chatters I got? Who needs enemies, right? It's always something. But he's got a thin skin. You can't win. You go in, you take the slings and arrows, you block, and he's thin skin and he's chubby and he's got the Filtrum. Constant criticism. Everybody's a critic. You know what? One of these days, somebody's going to rub me the wrong way, and I'll say, you know what? Fine, I'm not going to save the white race. I was going to save the white race. You ruined it for everybody. Now I'm just going to go hang out in Minecraft. So one of these days, you're going to push too far. You're going to say the thing that makes me upset. You're going to say the thing that makes me, that I'm sensitive about, and I'll just be done, and you'll never hear from me again, Chubby, balding, Filtrum, I can take that, but who knows? Maybe one day somebody's going to say something, and I'll just say, that's how Jared Hull can actually kick us off. He'll send a $5 super chat saying, I don't know, something. And then I'll be like, you know what? We're wrapping it up. Game over. The lore says Chick-fil-A puts MSG in the food. Look up the effects. I know about MSG. I didn't know that. What can you eat then? All these effing people. Every week, it's, I had Chick-fil-A, I had McDonald's, I ate something real. It's always, no, you can't put, like with Sean. What did I say I was eating? I said, I've been eating a lot of oatmeal. Oh, you can't eat oatmeal. Oatmeal has phytoestrogens. What can I eat then? What can I eat? For crying out loud. It's everything. You can't eat McDonald's. That has whatever. You can't eat Chick-fil-A. It has MSG. You can't eat pasta. It's carbohydrates. You can't eat oatmeal. It's got phytoestrogen. What do you want me to eat? We're all going to die anyway. You got to eat. What are you talking about? We're going to eat the one right food. Go to hell. MSG. More like SMD. MSG, more like SMD. How about that? Is there any SMG when you SMD? When you S my D? Is there any SMG in that? Unreal, You go into it, the super chatters, we're all excited for the super chats, and it's just every day. But every day we can't catch a break. Pro Truth says, white Christians don't know. I apologize. That got a little crude there. That got a little inappropriate. I apologize for our younger audience members. For the 14-year-olds watching, Pro Truth says, white Christians don't know how to lobby, so they sit on their sofas and grumble at Muslims when they actually do stuff. Muslims shut down PAWS in UK by pulling their kids from school, and conservatives called them incompatible. Yeah, you're right about that. It's true. It's true. Unless and until people get off their ass and do something, country's going to go to hell. So true. So true. Nobody wants to do anything. Everybody just wants to complain. And their kids will suffer as a result. Elon says thoughts on adoption. Alt-right calls it cuckoldry. I don't know. I guess adoption's a charitable act. I wouldn't do it because I want my own blood. But if you can't do that for whatever reason, if you're sterile or whatever, adoption's good. And, if you have kids and you get older, I've seen that happen where people have their own biological kids, and then when they get older, they have, adopted kids. So I don't think there's anything wrong in itself. The problem is just when it becomes an alternative. The problem is people don't want to have their own kids, and they want to import people from other countries, and you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's the cuckoldry, but otherwise I don't think there's anything wrong in itself. I would just always prefer to have my own kids. Mord says, I love socialism. I don't know if I'm a socialist, but I see where you're coming from. Josh Sayre, my man, says the comparison of the Virgin Gorsuch versus the Chad Kavanaugh is pretty analogous to the cucked cons versus the right. Keep up the great job, dude. You're killing it. Well, thank you, man. Maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. It's been in my notes yesterday and today, but just been so much else going on. But maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow, because you're right. It's a pretty good analogy for what's happening more largely in the conservative movement. Snake Eater says Pastor Steven Anderson is based. He just came out with the documentary Beyond Jordan. The second half especially goes hard on a certain question. I'll have to check that out, yeah. I like Steven Anderson. I think he's a little over the top sometimes, and obviously Protestant, and his delivery to me is not very Christian, but that's okay, We need allies. We need people where there's overlap as opposed to fighting about, these little differences. So I'll check that out. But we like Steve. He's a tough guy. Glenn says, do you know anybody that could possibly be our Orban? I liked your comparison yesterday to Trump, but I don't really know anybody that could articulate something like that here in the U.S. Exactly, that's the thing. It would be something in the future. So you're right. There is nobody, I don't think at the moment, who could articulate that alternative. There are intellectuals who can do that. Darren Beatty, I think, is great. Ryan Gerdusky is great. Ann Coulter's great. Patrick Buchanan was great. But those are all intellectual type people, or pundits. We need a leader. We need a politician. And that person doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. Or maybe they're alive, but they haven't, been elevated yet. So I said that yesterday, saying, similarly, as Trump kind of came out of nowhere and took the country by storm, maybe a figure like that will come in America. But they're not, we don't know of them yet, right? So we'll have to see if that person rises up. Because, Trump came out of nowhere. Matteo Salvini rose up from relative obscurity. So maybe they're out there, Viktor Orban was a pig farmer. He was just some peasant, basically. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. That's what he was. He was just he was living like some farmer from 100 years ago, and then he became the leader. So who knows? Let's see. Clifton says, is 22 too young to settle down and start a family? I don't think so. No, as long as you've got the financial aspect figured out, I think, the earlier the better. I don't know, though. 22 is a little... I know people say you should settle down as soon as possible. I don't know. In this economy, and particularly in this sex economy, I would say it would be prudent to wait. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying that for anybody else, but my personal opinion is I've seen it happen that you settle down too early and it doesn't work out. I've seen it happen where people are in a relationship for a long time, or they get committed really young and it doesn't work out. So that's not to say that it's not a good thing to settle down early. It's obviously a case-by-case thing, but in my opinion, the way women are, I just wouldn't trust it to settle down that quickly. The way the system works these days, in my personal situation, I'm going to wait a little while, but I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with it, no. And if you got the right one, you think she's the one, she's going to stick around, she's religious, the financial aspect's figured out, yeah, then why not? Sure. Go for it. But just in my situation, I want to mature a little bit. My brain isn't even fully developed, and it's I got to make a decision. I'm going to be living with this person for the rest of my life. I don't know about that. I have a pretty low threshold for tolerance for other people, so maybe that's just my personal, temperament. But anyway, MD Extreme says, thoughts on the Ukrainian Catholic Church? I don't really know anything about that one in particular. But I know Faith Goldie is in there, I believe. She is part of that church, and she says it's great. So, Smelly says, cheated on my GF twice now. I love her more. I don't know why. Okay, disavow. Shouldn't be doing that. But I guess I can kind of understand how that happens. Finn says, great show. Glad to see you going Nico mode for self. God bless. See you tomorrow. To be clear, I'm not white knighting, okay? Don't want anybody to get that perception. I'm not white knighting. I'm defending a child and also attacking the media. So, Gen Z says, hey, big guy, did you ever party in college, or were you too busy miraculously carrying the entire Aryan race on your back with your tiny Castizo frame? See, chubby, tiny, which is it? And I'm 6'9", so it's a pretty vertical frame. No, I never partied in college. I didn't go to a single party in college. I went to parties in high school, but I never partied in college. I was always in my dorm room just hanging out, and I had friends in college. We would, on Saturday night or whatever, we would go out to Tasty Burger. I think I've told this story before. Our social circle, we would all get together. We would go to the Tasty Burger by Fenway Park, and we would talk about politics. We would talk about race mixing. We would talk about the Jewish question. We would talk about race and IQ, these kinds of things. That was the environment in which I was red-pilled, because I came in a basic conservative, and I met a great group of people in all these different election-type events. I think we all met, actually, when we went to see the first general election debate. There was this big Fox News viewing party hosted by Fox News in Boston, and we went and we all met together. I went in my Trump shirt, my Trump flag, Trump hat, and they were all like, oh, that's based. We're like, whatever. And so one of the guys there was like a classical liberal, but he was based, and he was turning me on to Sam Harris and Stefan Molyneux. And one of them was on the Jordan Peterson train, and he red-pilled me on Jordan Peterson. He was into psychology and evolutionary psychology. One of them was a Duganist, hardcore Eurasianist type guy. And so we would go into the Tasty Burger, and we'd all, contribute our, findings and debate each other and whatever. So that was not, and I don't know, is that kind of like, I don't know, it sounds kind of dorky, but that's what we were doing. I wasn't a party guy. I don't drink, so I wasn't really a partier. I was more into, it was about the marketplace of ideas for me, frankly. Crestfallen says they want us to think PP equals poo-poo or get banned. I know. It's outrageous. Shulaman says, how do I red pill my GF about the BRAP question? I don't even know what the BRAP question is, so I don't know how you're going to do that. Glenn says, Jack in the Box mini churros greater than McDonald's donut fries. I never had it. I don't think we have Jack in the Box here. Or we don't have that many. I've never seen one, so. I went there once. Oops, there's a hair floating around. I went there once when I was in California, but that was the only time I ever went, so I don't know. I'll have to try that. Tan Staffel says, Soph is a sharp kid. I wonder if she is Sam Hyde's baby sister. Yeah, it could be. Pretty base, pretty smart, too. Pretty sharp for a kid her age. Firewall says, love you, Knickers, but why are you always so angry? I'm not angry. Angry? Who's angry? I'm having a good time. It's righteous indignation. It's not anger. Okay? D Sharp says, he fights for us. It's true. I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for Soph. I'm fighting for the common man, the working man. The working man. That's who I stand up for. I stand up for the little guy, okay? I stand up for the little guy, a.k.a. Destiny, all right? I stand up for the little man. Defeat the world says cultural objectivism or cultural relativism. Probably cultural relativism, honestly. I guess it depends on what you're talking about. For me, it's like, it is kind of cultural context dependent. In other words, for things that are like inconsequential, basically, like gestures, language, customs, mannerisms, I would say relativism. But if you're talking about, ethics, or if you're talking about morality, then I would say, but that's really more objectivism in the realm of morality and ethics as opposed to culture. So I don't know exactly in what context you mean that. But I think it's more nuanced than that generally. Interdimensional Harmony says, watching Sopranos on season 3, binging since last week. So how do I start a Mafia level 1 noob here? Mafia's dead, man. They're all legitimate now, for the most part. So that's since the internet and the feds and, legal things that have been created, the Mafia is basically dead. I can't really watch that show anymore. It makes me too anxious. That show was designed to watch it 1 week at a time, but you watch 4 episodes in a row, and I'm like, I have PTSD. Because there's just so much yelling and conflict and people dying, and it makes me think about death. It makes me think about dying, and it's just kind of unsettling. It's just a lot of yelling and things. So I can't really handle all that at once, I can't really deal with it. People die. Like every episode, people are dying, and it's like, I'm already anxious about dying. And then the show's about people getting shot and people getting in car accidents, and legitimately had that effect. I was like, wait a second, why am I so depressed all of a sudden? And a friend of mine who's also watching it at the same time, he's like, it's the show. They're dropping like flies. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I should probably not watch so much. Maybe I'll watch it here and there. So I can't handle it. I'm too fragile. I'm a snowflake. I can't help it. Josh Sayre says, Nick, the reason Detroit, Chicago, Oakland, and Baltimore are dangerous is because of the Democrats. You need to educate yourself. Never relax. Yeah, that's the answer, right? Charlie Kirk really wants you to believe that Detroit doesn't work because of Democratic policies. Yeah. Chicago is violent because of Democratic policies. Democratic policies made them violent. Okay. I believe you. Just like Democrat policies ruined Haiti, and Democrat policies ruined South Africa, and Swaziland, and Lesotho, and Mozambique, and Botswana, and Zambia, and Namibia, and Zimbabwe, and Burundi, and Rwanda, and Uganda, and Kenya. It ruined all those countries. Democrats, socialism, it ruined them all. In the neighborhood of African migrants in China, Democrat policies. The African neighborhoods in Europe, it's Democrats, man. Come on. Do we not, like, you live in the same world that I do. Come on. Really? Everybody knows this. Okay? They all know this. I'm not saying anything controversial. The Democrats are the problem. Hello. Justin KG says, keep spitting that heat, Nicky boy. Oh, thanks, I will. America Only says, well, if they want to attack a 14-year-old child, we should bake them. I don't know what you mean by that. You mean like burn them in an argument, like slam them online? Because otherwise, I don't know what you're talking about. Deplorable Mike says, whoa, Nick, got to calm down there, King. All we have to do is give them a stern talking to, and they'll surely stop committing white genocide. That's all I'm saying. We just need to win the battle of ideas. That's all. Gen Z Philosophy says, hey, instead of the SPLC, what if we founded something called the Northern Opulence Chaos Center that completely flips everything they say? It's the NOCC. I don't know what that acronym is even supposed to be. Northern Opulence Chaos. Why that acronym? But, yeah, I don't know, I guess. I don't think that'd work. Nick says, did you see the guy who got banned from Wrigley Field last week for playing the circle game so much for just go outside in the real world? Yeah, I did see that. Right? That's what they all say. It's just not like that. You got to go talk to real people. Go outside. Go into the real world. This is the real world. What world do you think we're talking about? You think we're talking about, I don't even know. We're talking about Jupiter or Pluto? You think this kind of thing is happening on Mars? It's happening in the same world we all live in. But it's not happening to you is what you mean. People mean it's not affecting us yet, so ignore it. That's what they really mean. Go outside, talk to real people, talk in the real world. It's not as bad as you think. What you're really saying is ignore it. It's not directly affecting you, so ignore it until it does. Because it's happening in the same world, right? Eric writes, has ever heard of U.S. Law 447? It requires the State Department to report to Congress on reparations progress for the Holocaust. It's new. Thank you, Trump admin. Thank you, Donald Trump, for this great law, making America great again. Good. We need to definitely keep track of that. Lord knows we have not paid enough reparations, and the Jewish people do not have enough. We just have to keep it coming, right? We're sorry. We have to start every day with a ritual apology. God's plan says, if you worked for Trump at the beginning of the term, would you continue to stick by him or have left by now? Big numbers lately, big guy. Let's get to 2K. Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people that did work for Trump and have left. I know a lot of people that work for their campaign or they worked in the White House and they've moved on because of the way things are going. I know a lot of stories like that. And I know a lot of people who tell me these stories, and it is them. They tell me that they've heard the same thing, and a lot of supporters are the same way. So the loyalists are not happy. People that are in it, this is their reality. When I talk about personnel and all that, that's their everyday. So yeah, I've heard about that a lot. Zirconium says, in a city of free museums, 3 DC museums that cost money: the Newseum, the Spy Museum, and the Holocaust Museum. Yeah, it makes you think. I passed the Holocaust Museum and I just started crying the last time I went. The Air and Space Museum, to me, is the coolest one because they got the airplanes, because it's a big, cool one. No, but that's probably my favorite. It's the only one I make a point to see every now and again. Oh, even though I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of heights. And so when I go in there and I see the big airplanes hanging around, it just rubs me the wrong way. I don't like that feeling. You know, when I was a kid, I'll let you in on a funny story. It's a little bit of a, what's the word? What's the word when it's a self-deprecating story. But it is a funny story. When I was a very young kid, we go to these Portillo's restaurants in Chicago, and they have a lot of, like, decorations. You know, they have a big theme. It's like the 1920s theme or a 1930s theme. It's like an old Chicago sort of a theme. And they have a lot of decorations that are hanging up in the restaurant, or big things hanging up. And when I was a kid, I would refuse to go into any place that had something like that, because I was always afraid that it would fall down. I was always very paranoid and neurotic about that kind of thing, that if you were standing under, because they would have a big, a big decoration hanging from the ceiling. I was always afraid it would fall. So I would have to sit in a booth where it was just the ceiling, or I would refuse to go in. That kind of stuff used to freak me out. I don't know why. And it a little bit, not for the same reason, but it still freaks me out a little bit to this day, to see big things hanging overhead. I don't like to look up. I don't like to look down. Can everybody just kind of hang out on the ground floor? Is that cool with everybody? Millennial Matt was giving me a hard time about that in Prague. He wanted me to go up to the top of this huge castle. And I'm like, I'm good, man. I just don't need to see that. And he's like, come on, you're being a baby. You're going up there. And I was like, no, please, go without me. I'm fine. So that kind of stuff. For whatever, I don't know why, but it just really, I can't do it. I don't fear much, but that, I guess I am paranoid about a lot of things, but that's one of them that's really a no-go for me. Anyway, Justin KG says it's XRP, it's fast and decentralized. Oh, Ripple. I don't know about Ripple. I just trust Bitcoin, America Only says, well, if we can get everybody out of debt and focus, we can create the Clown World Institute and get it going with shekels and keep suing them until they collapse under the law like race pimps do to employers. Yeah, that's maybe an alternative. I guess we just have to start, accumulating lots of money. That's really the foundation of it, is money. Orban said that. I think that's really what it comes down to, because money is power. Jimbo says, I know a lot of President Trump's inactions are black pills, but is there anyone that fits closer to what we need done in American politics than him? No, and that's exactly the point. That's what I've been saying for years. There's nobody that is even close to where he is, as bad as that is. So we're going to hold our breath. I'm probably going to vote for him in 2020, but not going to be happy about it, because we also have to have expectations. Gen Z says, LOL, Molyneux red-pilled me too at that interview. Yeah, he's pretty good. Mr. says, forget about QAnon. Find Hoff before he eat the poo-poo and say Big N. Hoff. Who is Hoff? Mac, I thought you meant Hoft for a second, but then I realized you said this the other day as well. Mac says, fix your damn posture. I'm tired, dude. James says, I met Yang at a rally a while back. You were right about his speech being Reddit tier, but he's all right, and talk to me about any foreign wars. Yeah, a lot of the delivery, the jokes, talking points are Reddit, but he's smart and he gets it. It's just that cultural stuff is just so paused. It's so lame, but what are you going to do? It's an improvement. Josh Sayre says, Nick, you should eat bugs, MSG free, low carbs. Yeah, it really makes you think, right? Don't eat meat, don't eat this, don't eat that. The next thing you know, they're going to start suggesting the crickets. Anne-Marie says, Nick, my granddaughter is single, wink, wink. Yeah, call me in 5 years, all right? Kind of focusing on the career. I don't know how many times I have to say this. Appreciate the offer. I'm sure she's a charming girl, but, I'm trying to focus on the bag right now. I'm focused on securing the bag, focused on the battle pass, okay? And we'll worry about that in 4 to 5 years. Capitalist Manifesto says, Molly Meme really did red pill me. Oh, God, I'm a joke. No, Molly Meme is red pilled, so. David Spurner says, great show, thanks. Abra says, pro tip, you can extend the life of a suit by taking it to the tailor and have it let out. Great to know. Thanks. Running says, are you going to moderate the debate between Sticks and Cantwell on libertarianism? Yeah, probably not. Don't really want to be anywhere near Cantwell. Sticks is a good dude, but Cantwell, a little bit of a psycho. Honk Pilled says, what's your real height? I don't know what you're talking about. 6'9". So people ask me, well, no, but what's your real height? 6'9". Do I have a real height and a fake height? I don't understand this. Daniel says, Satanism has really left its mark on Washington, D.C. We need someone with guts to roll the dice and expose the roots of the city's strange architecture. Yeah, well, people talk about it. It's just nobody cares, I guess. Max says, Jordan Peterson, what do you think of him? I've done a few shows on him. I'm not a huge fan. He's better than a lot of them, but he's pretty blue-pilled on most issues. But personal responsibility, a lot of the things he says about IQ, it's laying the groundwork for good things. But he just countersignals identity politics, which is problematic. James Russells says, Charlie Kirk tweeted how we shouldn't go to war with Iran. What WTF, I'm a kosher, conservative nationalist now. That's surprising. But, he always has been a little bit more on this new nationalist side than the other side. He's obviously a civic nationalist. He's a little bit blue-pilled, but I don't think he's always been a neocon sellout. I think he has been more of a Trumpist on trade, on foreign policy, immigration, which is better than most. So, yeah, even though he is a hack. James Russell says, by the way, Nick, has QAnon said anything of Iran happening? No, QAnon has not informed me of any inside baseball on that. Collective, but it's people are so dumb. Trump is like, we've got 120,000 troops ready to go, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to happen. When the same thing happened with North Korea, I just don't, people don't see the game by now. People don't see the strategy. It's a possibility it's going to happen, but what are the chances it's bluffing versus he's serious? So possibility, but I hear that and everyone's like, the sky's falling. Well, he's kind of done this for a few years, right? Collective says, is it gay to play as a woman in a video game? Yeah, I think so. Generally. ASDF says, Nick, are you startled by loud noises? Are you upset when your daily routine is interrupted? Do you have special interests that you get consumed with? No. No. I think you're trying to imply something there. But the answer is no. That I know the implication means it's not true. See? People have insinuated, I think you're trying to insinuate I'm autistic. People have been insinuating this lately. But it's not true because I can read social situations and I'm funny and I'm normal enough. I'm just, it's just insanity. That's all it is. It's just, I don't know. I'm just a little bit off, okay? But I'm not autistic, all right? For everybody that keeps saying that. I'm too charismatic to be autistic. If I was autistic, I would have a weird twitch or a stutter, or I wouldn't be able to conduct good interviews, I wouldn't be funny. So I see what you're getting at there, but it's not true. And that I can see where you're going with that. I think proves it. Because if I was autistic, I would be like, I would just answer all the questions honestly. But I'm not. I'm just a normal dude, okay? Billy says, today was the last day of my spring semester. My technical writing professor finished off the class with an epilogue about church and religion being stupid. Classic college, right? Gotta love that. Yeah, college is paused. I think that's been established. Temple Drake says, Fuentes, will you take me to prom? Please say you will. Nah, no thanks. But hey, thanks for the offer. I went to prom twice. I was a junior, as a senior. I liked the food, but other than that, didn't really have a great time. Well, actually, I did have a good time, but the first time I went, it was fun because a lot of my friends went, and the girl I went with was a friend of mine. And the second time, the girl and I didn't really get along. So that kind of made it a little bit of a bummer because I had to sit with her. The food was still good, but I sit with her and I felt like obligated to hang around with her, even though she was so rude. We were supposed to be somewhere for photos like an hour before, and she's like late. They take the picture without her. She shows up. She's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm like, you don't even look that good. No, I'm joking. No, but that's a joke. That's a joke. She looked great. But she was late, and, so it just didn't really work out so well the second time. Still, I guess, generally fun because I hung out with friends anyway, and the food was still good. And we went on the boat, and the food was good on the boat. Food from dinner all the way up until 3 a.m., so that was great. But, so I've been there, done that. Thanks for the offer. But, I'm good on hermit mode over here. I'm in hermit mode. I'm doing great. But, hey, thanks so much for the offer. Blake says, how do I red pill children? I don't know if that's a great idea. Fortnite, I guess. Running Wild says, you can't keep the raw Chips Ahoy dough out on the counter forever. Got to put them in the oven. I prefer the Reese's cookies. I don't know. That's just kind of a weird chat. I don't know if that's some kind of covert message, but if it is, I disavow. So I don't know what you're getting at there. But we disavow all hate messages, dog whistles or otherwise. Mitch says, oi, bruv, me name is Winston J. Higginbacher, and you'll be watching Britain First. We got a cracking show on the telly for you this evening. God save the Queen. Well, thank you, mate. Thank you, bruv, for the chat. Thanks to our based British friends from across the way. I think I'm going to go over to Britain. I want to go over there before I get banned. Got to go over there, meet my British friends, Joey Mole, the Milkman. Who else do I know in Britain? A few others who I can't say because people don't know that I know them. And it'd be bad publicity. But, I might have to make it out there now that everybody's getting kicked out. Go to my roots, my Celtic roots. I'm from Ireland. I guess Ireland would be the move maybe. But Ireland doesn't kick people out as much. Max says, remember when Destiny reported you on stream? Yeah, I remember that. Good times. Okay, that's all our super chats. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm tired and I'm hungry. So we're going to have to head out. Remember to check us out at NickJFuentes.com/membership to become a premium member. Remember, it's only $5 a month to become a premium subscriber. It's the best way to support our show. You get one additional show every week, exclusive for premium members, so be sure to check that out. Link is down below. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Give me a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Click the notification bell to get notified every time I go live. Remember, we are on the air Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm NickJFuentes. As always, thank you guys for watching. Thanks to our super chatters, premium members, everybody who watches the show. We love you, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo. It's going to be only America first. America first. The American people will come first once again.